This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 149 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. And first off the bat, got to promote the socials and the channels. So if you're not following me, make sure you give me a like on the video. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. If you're listening, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea, and me at Ant Rivera 86. And I got to say right off the bat, star spread in the news. The Mets swept yesterday. Yes, the New York Mets swept the New York Yankees. It's weird to say that because it was a 2-game sweep. It's a little weird of a series there, but very excited. And I know that you guys are. So I'm going to get to your comments to chat. 22 people are in the room right now. And we're heading to a series, possible trap series, because, it is the Houston Astros and they've handled us pretty well over the last couple of years. But joining me to break all of this down, good friend to the Subway to Shea podcast, Suzy from Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Suzy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, especially, now that we are both at 500. That's a good benchmark
Yes.
to be at. So doing much better now.
Yeah, very excited to finally be back at 500. It's weird to say it. It's like, I can't believe I'm excited for this, but considering what both teams have gone through from the beginning of the season till now with the expectations, I assume that Houston had a little bit more expectations than the Mets did. They kind of tempered our expectations at the beginning of the season, but we never thought it was going to be as bad as the start we had gotten off to, especially that awful May that we had. And we've turned that around in June to have the best record in baseball right now. Both teams 8-2 in their last 10 games. And we're going to get into that series, but I want to get your thoughts on the Subway series and what happened. Mets win game 1, 9-7. You got a couple of home runs from Mark Vientos. Harrison Bader continues to be clutch. Francisco Lindor, right off the bat, leading off 2 doubles in both games. He had about 4 doubles in the series, and it was great to see. The pitching was okay. David Peterson really did not go the length that you needed him to, especially with how the bullpen is without Edwin Diaz. He only gave us 4 1/3 innings pitch, but he kept the Yankees off the scoreboard mostly and only gave up the 1 earned run, which was a home run to Juan Soto. And then the bullpen took over. Daniel Nunez for us has been just such a blessing. 2 2/3 innings pitch. Same thing you could say the next day with Adrian Hauser. Those guys have been our workhorses out of the bullpen because we've gotten a lot of struggles from guys like Danny Young, Adam Ottavino, even Reed Garrett to a certain extent, who gave up a big grand slam to Aaron Judge. And the offense on Wednesday, yesterday, was Francisco Alvarez. Unbelievable how well he has been playing this season. 3 for 3, had a home run, 3 RBIs, and he scored 3 runs. And then again, Harrison Bader, another home run, who's just a guy that I really don't want to trade at the trade deadline because he just seems like he's made for New York, whether he was on the Yankees or the Mets. So it's great to see here. Suzy, I want to get your take. Being an Astros fan, we both have the dislike for the Yankees, right? And what is your thought on how this series went down and what this kind of shows for the Yankees?
Well, like I recorded with my co-host yesterday on our last episode of Bourbon and Baseball, I had told Tom that if you guys swept the Yankees, that y'all would be hot in the streets. And, hats off, because we all know that, the Yankees team, Yankee fan base, not our most favorite. And so anytime that any team that, we don't particularly dislike, can do some damage against them, chef's kiss. We love that. So, was I expecting an absolute slugfest? I don't think I was. I don't think I was. The Wednesday night game, excuse me, the Tuesday night game, the little bit closer than I guess what I had thought was going to happen. And then last night's game, it's just you're like, you get a home run and you get a home run and you get a home run. And, so I love that for you guys. It's the hottest AL team now meeting the hottest NL team for June. And there will be a blue and orange team that wins this weekend, whichever correct way you view that will
Yeah.
skew however you want this to go, but a blue and orange team will win this weekend. So that I am sure. Um, we over here in Astroland, at no point in time did we think that we were going to get off to the awful start that we did. And especially since, we had a better catcher, a new manager that actually looked at like analytic details, things like that. And so when you told me that we were going to start off 12 for 24, absolutely not. No, there's no way. There's no way. Did Maldi come back? Did we like put all Maldis on our team? Like what happened? But then coming out of that black hole of despair that we were in, it feels good. It feels good. So, we're on a little bit of a heater. You are also on a little bit of a heater. So we shall see who reigns supreme at the end of this.
Yeah, and to think the start that the Astros got off to compare to where they are now, that they are, I think it is it 4.5 games out of first place from the Seattle Mariners?
Yes. Yep. 4.5.
Wow. Considering how just like that start went for them, and even with the Mets, who there's not a chance right now that we can even talk about division, because the Phillies have kind of just been on the tear that they've been in.
Right.
But you look at them getting back to 500, which I thought was hugely important to do in this next set of games that they're coming into. I didn't even expect a sweep of the Yankees. I said if they split, fine. But this is a tough stretch for them, because you got 10 games without, and now 8 games without Edwin Diaz. It's important that they are able to stabilize what they can right now with this team until he returns, and to get off to the start that they did against their crosstown rivals. Especially you see all the fans, you saw the videos from Yankee bleacher
Right.
creatures and everyone and the media and everything that had been said. And I got to say, I'm ecstatic just to head into this series with the Astros, just getting those 2 games. And, you think about like what were the keys to these two wins here. And I talked about the offense, for
Right.
the Mets. We always talk about Pete Alonso and Lindor, and we talk about Brandon Nimmo. And I did a hit with Dexter Henry on SNY New York's Post, and I talked about the bottom of the lineup for about a year and a half. And you can include the last part of 2022, even when they made the playoffs. The Mets had not had a good bottom of the lineup. It's kind of like, I like to call it Death Valley
Yep.
for the Mets. Now you got the return of Francisco Alvarez, who's kind of living up to that hype. You got a coming of age Mark Vientos. You got Harrison Bader, who's been clutch all season long. And then you got the leadership. And even if it's off the bench for most of the time, Jose Iglesias has brought a different dynamic to this team. And you can talk about Grimace. You could talk about his song OMG. But knowing Jose Iglesias, and I'm pretty sure you've seen him a lot in the American League. I think he played for the Angels as well. The type of person he is, the type of player he is, you go look at his stats, and he's never disappointed. And to have him on this team, I wanted him right from the start at the beginning of the season. And we got Zach Short, Joey Wendell. The fact that we have him now, I think, is such a big deal for this team moving forward.
Right. Well, let me ask you thoughts on JD Martinez. I know he wasn't there for the beginning of the season. He was, ramping up and whatnot. How big is he in leadership? Just off the bench. He's your everyday DH, right?
Yeah. He's been huge because he helped start that meeting as well, that players only meeting with Francisco Lindor. And like,
was that after the Jorge Lopez?
That was after
that
the
one?
Jorge.
Okay.
I think it was like same day. Jorge Lopez had gotten ejected. Alonso had gotten hurt and went to the hospital. And then these guys had the team meeting. And I thought it was very important, because that's really was the last stand, right? Like how
Right.
many more, you can't do meetings every time. The coach had his meeting. David Stearns came out and said his piece. The owner says his piece. The players say their piece. Like at a certain point, you have to lay it out on the field. You have to play well on the field. And they finally seem to have clicked. I was always going to be patient with JD Martinez because he really came to us within the last week of spring training. So he didn't have a month to get himself ready. And he only came back, I think, 2 weeks into the season. It took him a while to get himself going, to get the power going. And he has been so important to the middle of that lineup, especially when Pete Alonso has not really been Pete Alonso.
Right. Yeah. Well, I really liked the fact that JD Martinez laid out the fact of why he didn't go to the Giants, why he actually signed with the Mets, going over his own numbers and, seeing that if he pulls the ball in San Francisco versus if he pulls the ball, in Citi Field, like it's going to be a big difference for him personally. And I don't know how many guys, especially at his age, are deep diving into their numbers and their analytics and comparing that to their own, to the ballpark to make that decision. And I thought that was awesome for him to come out and say that. I'm all, oh, all right then. Like, and he's been doing great for you guys as well. And so, I just look up and down that lineup, and I think I went through like your top 5 can all hurt you. I mean, and then you add in Harrison Bader can drive the ball out. I think I said last night on the show that the only 2 that probably wouldn't would be like Jeff McNeil and then Tyrone Taylor. And then later on after the rain delay, Tyrone Taylor said, Suzy, I heard your slander and here's a home run. And I'm all, JK, Tyrone Taylor, I'm so sorry. So basically you have the entire lineup that can drive the ball out. I'm all, oh, good. That's so much fun for us. I love that.
Yeah, it's really only Jeff McNeil who seems to be, and it's sad to say this, but the weak link of the lineup. I mean, if he was 2022 Jeff McNeil, if he was the batting champion Jeff McNeil, I mean, this team might score 10 runs a night, like for most of the week, but he just has not been himself. I don't know what the problem is with him. A lot of it could possibly be from the rule changes and the shift changes because he's just not, pulling the ball the way he used to and looking for the corners. And it's just not the same. A lot of weak fly pop-ups, a lot of striking out. He's just not getting to the ball like he used to. And it's, frustrating not only for, the team, but you see him frustrated as well when he's playing on the field. At least he doesn't bring it into the defense, which has been good. Him and Lindor have been pretty solid defensively, but I would like to see a little bit more of Jose Iglesias in this lineup because he has been hitting. I think he's at the moment he's hitting over 400 right now. And I know they were kind of doing this little platoon thing. I think the fact that there was 4 or 5 lefties in a row kind of got us spoiled because we had Jose Iglesias playing every single day while McNeil was sitting. And, now that we're facing all these righties, McNeil is in the lineup, and I don't know if he got the memo, if he got the message that, he's just, not cutting it right now.
Right. Well, and you guys have kind of the same problem of the whole you paid him, so you must play him kind of mentality, like how we had with Jose Abreu. And I had been screaming from the rooftops, if the Diamondbacks could DFA, Madison Bumgarner a couple seasons back, we as, Astros trying to go after another, AL West, like ALCS, hopefully the World Series, we could DFA Jose Abreu. And everyone's like, that's so much money. And I know, and it's not my money. And I understand. But if the Diamondbacks, small club Diamondbacks can do that, pretty sure big club could do it as well. So how much time is left on Jeff McNeil's contract? He's got a while.
He has got 2 more years after this because he signed in 2023. It was a 4-year deal. So yeah, he's got about 2 more years in this deal. But we all seen with Steve Cohen that he will not hesitate. Like you're talking about the Astros needing to cut bait. He did not hesitate to cut Robinson Cano in his contract. He did not hesitate to trade James McCann and pay the rest of that contract. The same thing, you guys getting back Justin Verlander. We're eating most of that contract, but that could change as well if he does not get to the 140 innings. That comes off our books. And I don't know how you feel about Justin Verlander right now, if he is going to return this season and if he's going to kind of get to that innings count.
Well, so he actually isn't traveling with the team this weekend. He's staying back here in Houston and working on his neck. I don't even really know what's wrong with his neck. They've literally only just told us that he has neck issues, like a sore neck or something. He's not doing any baseball activity right now. So I'm all, what? How sore is your neck, JV? What is happening? And I mean, he's 41. I'm 41. I get out of bed wrong, and I realize that I've like slept. And there's things that hurt on my body that I'm all, I just slept. It shouldn't hurt. So I realized I'm not an elite athlete. And if my body feels this way, I can't imagine what, elite athlete goes through rigorous training and all that to try and maintain his body is going to feel like. And so, I think maybe a part of this is we are trying to quote unquote save him for later on in the season, later on. And so hopefully we have, like peak Verlander, I say hopefully into the playoffs, fingers crossed if we can get that far. But it'd be super helpful now if we could get, I don't know, a starter back, because 4,003 starters are on the IL for us. So it's one of these where I don't know who's going to be starting for us on Sunday. Maybe I will. Who knows?
It does make sense to hold back, given his age, to have him take your time, get ready when we need you, because we know what Justin Verlander is. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame pitcher, World Series champion. There's no doubt that if he's 100% healthy, especially in a playoff run, he's going to give you every last ounce of himself on that mound. And,
absolutely,
I, for one, was a little indifferent on him. I did not want to sign him because of, thinking into the future, and whatever I thought came into fruition here. After losing deGrom, which was, kind of heartbreaking, but then even he got hurt. But I did not want to go down that same route. I know that he, like I said, had the pedigree. I just thought at that age that, especially coming to the Mets and our luck of healthy players, that it wasn't going to go well for him. But I hope he does get better. He was a professional when he was here, one of the nicest guys, nicest teammates. And, I hope nothing but the best and that he comes back healthy. I just don't want him to get over the 140 innings limit so that we don't have to pay for the rest of that contract.
Yeah, I don't think he'll get there, honestly. I don't know when the cutoff is for that. Does it have to be in the regular season?
It has to be in the regular season, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you know this about me, Anthony, but I may be Asian, but I'm not that Asian, so I don't do math very well. And I can't figure out in my head how many starts that would be. And so I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to embarrass myself like that. But I probably don't think we're going to get there this season. So you probably can take that number off your books.
Yeah, I know Astros fans may not be paying as close attention to the Verlander situation, but I know Met fans have their little notebook, have their little calendar counting down the days and the innings so that they don't have to pay that contract, because we're also still paying for Max Scherzer as well.
Scherzer too. Yeah,
trying to get all these contracts off the books, and that, I guess that's the one huge positive of having Steve Cohen is, he's willing to eat these contracts, and the fact that he's doing that, the fact that he has the money to go after big free agents, although we really haven't hit on a really major free agent just yet, and the fact that David Stearns has come in here, and every little piece that he's kind of brought in here so far has been successful. Probably, I would gonna say about probably 95% of the pieces that he brought in here has added something to this team. And now it seems that they're hitting on all cylinders and, finally getting back to 500, which is great. I want to shout out to the chat. We got 62 people in the room right now.
Ooh.
Jeff Cohen, Deron Rivera, Brad is in here, Lane Kerner, G Money Stacks is in here. My friend CP from CPNY Sports, he's in the room as well. All of you, if I missed you, I apologize, but thank you so much for being a part of this show with me and Suzy. We're going to break down the Astros series preview this weekend shortly. I want to get to some of the comments. Let's start off with the Astros comment from Deron Rivera, and he goes, the Astros have a pedigree. They have been there before, and they know what it takes to win. And David Stearns actually comes from the Astros pedigree before he went to Milwaukee. I started off with the Mets as an intern, goes to the Astros, Milwaukee returns to the Mets. So how are your thoughts on how are you feeling with the front office? Even with the tough start that you guys got off to, you feel fine with the way that they have handled this season?
Um, so we've had a not so great feeling for our front office for the past few months. I mean, it really started when we didn't have a general manager. Let's rewind. It really started right after we won the World Series, and Jim Crane handed James Click a 1-year contract and said, "Here you go. Thanks for winning us a World Series. How about one more year?" You know, and to James Click's credit, he said no thank you, and then he moved on. I also would not take that contract, and so there was about a 3-month period there where we didn't have a GM, and our owner Jim Crane said, you know what, all those moves that I wanted to make, that all of the smart analytical people told me not a good idea, I'm going to go make those moves right effing now. And so he went and he signed Jose Abreu. He went and signed Rafael Montero for 3 years. Who signs a reliever for 3 years? Come on now. I mean, except for Josh Hader, but that Rafael Montero and Josh Hader are into different stratospheres. Regardless, it's one of those where you're like, you looked at the moves and you're all, it kind of looks okay, but like on the surface maybe, but then underneath you look at the hood and you're all, there's some holes here. Maybe we should fix these, So they brought in Dana, and you could kind of see slowly that the analytical guys that were in the front office, guys and girls that were in the front office, have been slowly leaving, moving off, going to other organizations. And I wasn't worried just quite yet. And then I think like the last straw for me was the originator of the stat like Stuff Plus that Sarah talks about. One of those guys that helped create that stat was actually on the Astros pitching staff, like in the analytical department. And in April, I want to say, said that he was no longer with the Astros. And I'm all, that's it. That's it. Like, who are we run by now? Like, we're not run by the analytics anymore. What are we doing? So I think Dana Brown has done a great job of scouting, and that was kind of his forte. And we're hoping that, the picks that he has gotten through the draft will hit. Fingers crossed. We're really, really, really hoping that Jeff Bagwell will kind of get out of Jim Crane's ear. Or maybe Jim Crane just takes a step back and lets Dana Brown do, I don't know, his actual job. And, like Jim is like, here's my checkbook. Go do the things. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Let's hope.
That's kind of what I like with what has happened with Cohen and Stearns, because you could tell when we first started out with Steve Cohen, kind of very proactive in being a part of just giving out money and contracts and getting whoever you can get in here. And I think it all came to a head when the Mets tried signing Carlos Correa. And, the medicals weren't great. And Epler told him to, maybe we should back off of this. And, now that we have Stearns, who's, I would say more of a guy that I would trust over Billy Epler, because, Epler's proven in the past, you see his work in Anaheim, that it just did not work out. And outside of kind of being able to flip all those pieces at the deadline for prospects last year, I was not impressed at all with Billy Epler's work. I think that he failed this team at the 2022 trade deadline when we could have gotten JD Martinez and instead try to get cute and give us, Daniel Vogelback and Darren Ruff and try to do this mix mosh of a DH situation. And it just didn't work. It didn't work. So, I totally understand, you and having Crane get out of the way, get out of his
Right.
own way and
Yep.
try to make the team better by allowing the general manager to do his job, because
Yep.
that's what they're there for. And they have the analytics team, which I'm not crazy about analytics, to be honest with you, but maybe it's just because the Mets have never really had a high powered analytics team. I mean, they were always behind the 8 ball when they were owned by the Wilpons. So maybe things are going to be different. They seem to be different with the way that the collaboration is between Stearns and Mendoza. They seem to hit a lot of the right spots and a lot of the right pieces so far. So we'll see if that continues to move forward. Things always change and always get a
Right.
little bit crazy on that end.
Yeah. I'm hoping, like I said, I hope that Jim Crane will kind of take a step back and say, okay, let this kind of failed. Let me do the things. Let Dana cook. Let the team cook. Figure it out. And so, I realize that correlation doesn't equal causation, but since Jose Abreu has been gone, when Jose Abreu was in Florida, the team did really well. Now that he's gone, it's picked back up. And I'm not saying that it's all Jose Abreu, like by no means, but that's got to affect the clubhouse a little bit, like a guy that knows he's struggling, that knows what he was and knows that he's not probably ever going to get back there, has got to affect the vibes and the energy in the clubhouse some way, somehow. And I realize that like actual baseball people will say, Suzy, vibes don't matter, but vibes matter. Like the energy in the clubhouse matters.
The vibes
And
matter. I mean, look at what it took us to, obviously there was the meeting, but you got this whole thing
right.
now with Grimace. You've got the OMG Jose Iglesias song
Didn't you have a guy, like a white guy with the big fur jacket? What was his name?
yes, Rally Pimp.
Yeah.
The Rally Pimp. Yeah,
Yes.
we had that for a while too. And there's always something. There's always
Yeah.
something to
Well,
try to
but you know
get
what?
this
Like
team to turn it around, but it's fun.
it's fun. It's fun, and it's got, and especially when y'all weren't doing well, it gave the fan base something to, like hold on to. We're just over here hugging our trash cans. Like we ain't got nothing over here, so I almost kind of wish we had, like Grimace. I'm like, Hamburglar, can we get you? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But we've got a couple of young guys that came up. We have Joey Loperfido that came up, that is a tremendous outfielder for us, and they've been kind of messing around with him at first base, but really his whole energy and his vibes when he's been up has just been awesome. I'm not saying that, our club doesn't play hard, because they do, but it is a little bit older veteran club, and sometimes you just need that like first year guy that is trying to prove his worth and is willing to, go all out for all of the plays as long as he's in there. And so we've got him, and then we've had a couple of different starting pitchers come up. Spencer Arrighetti, that's come up this season. And I didn't realize that he'd only been in AAA for one season last year. And I thought he had cooked a little bit longer, and I was wrong. And so the fact that he's essentially learning on the fly and doing the things that he's able to against major league pitching, against major league hitting, excuse me, has been phenomenal. Hunter Brown, it's his technical like second year, really full year. I mean, the fact that like he's locked it in and is looking more like the baby JV that we kind of dubbed him last season, has been great. I don't know where this club would be without Ronel Blanco, because if you would have told me in the preseason, hey Suzy, there will be a guy named Ronel Blanco that will be the ace of your staff, I would have looked at you and called you crazy. Because at no point in time did we ever expect Ronel Blanco to be the guy that's going to throw our first no-hitter. No point. Nope. Absolutely not. I would have lost $1 million on that, and then Spencer Arrighetti just struck out 10 yesterday. And if you would have told me in the offseason, hey, a guy named Spencer Arrighetti is going to be the first Astros pitcher to have double-digit strikeouts, I would have called you a filthy liar. No point in time. So it's like it's these names that you don't expect to be doing things that are doing things for the club. And of course, because baseball is baseballing. That's how the cookie crumbles. That's what it's gonna do. The baseball gods are gonna say, you only think you know baseball, but this is what I'm gonna throw at you and see what you can do with it. So
And that's what that's what good teams are built off of. That's where the Mets need to kind of strive to be at, where yeah, we may suffer an injury, maybe we lose a big player, but you're able to pick someone out either out of the minors, or if you pick someone up and they can come in seamlessly. And I don't want to say maybe they'll play the exact same way, but they'll provide what you need to continue to be a winning team. And that's something that the Astros have been able to do with all the plays that you have mentioned. So it's good to see them being able to turn it around. Shout out to Stony814 just joining the show. Appreciate you being on here. Shout out to Jeff Cohen. Suzy, you got another follower in Jeff Cohen just from here.
Thank you,
awesome.
Jeff. We appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm going to bring up this player because he's a former Met. I think you brought him up in the chat as well with me and Keith. Carlos Ortiz talking about the Astros picking up a fan favorite, in air quotes, Omar Narvaez for the Houston Astros. I honestly, I got nothing on this one for you, Suzy. I mean, to me, and I don't know where he fits in for the Astros, but trying to be the backup catcher for the Mets and what they signed him for, man, was he awful.
Yeah, so we signed Victor Caratini in the offseason to be our quote-unquote backup catcher because Yainer Diaz was going to take on that everyday role. Yeah, Victor Caratini has been amazing for us. We love him, and he has been a godsend. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and so we brought up our third catcher, Cesar Salazar from AAA, and he has done marvelously well. And so when they picked up Omar Narvaez, I was like, okay, so I think it was just to kind of provide a little bit of depth, I think, in AAA. But my co-host on Astros Edition Bourbon and Baseball thinks that maybe Victor Caratini is more hurt than they're letting on, and that once Victor gets a little bit of time on the IL, once Cesar gets a little bit of time up in the club, they'll bring up Omar and send down Cesar. And if that is the case, I will be very, very, very angry. I will be all of the angries because Cesar has done wonderfully for this club. Like, you want to talk about injecting that youthful energy? He also has done that for the club. And I don't know when the last time a club has had 3 decent hitting catchers that can also do their jobs catching while also not being a black hole. And so Cesar has come up and has been providing some RBIs, some sac flies, and actually has done really well behind the dish as well. Receiving, I want to say Fromber and Cesar is the new tandem, and he has stolen some strikes. And I actually don't tell Yainer this because I love Yainer, but I actually think that Cesar may be a better catcher than Yainer, stealing strikes, framing, that type of thing. And the fact that they can both kind of be in the lineup at the same time, Cesar catching and Yainer DHing if Jordan's in the field, is tremendous. So we shall see how that goes. If for some reason we actually hold on to Omar Narvaez, I will be kind of upset.
Well, I'll tell you this. You want offense? You're not getting it. You want defense? You ain't getting that either. You want a good pitch framer? Get someone else because he ain't doing that either.
Fair. So not good at any of the things we need. Perfect. Love that.
There was a season. It was Wilson Ramos' second season, and I thought that was the worst catching that I ever saw. He was really good in, I think it was 2019. 2019, he was really good. 2020, Wilson Ramos had probably one of the worst seasons I can remember behind the plate. Omar Narvaez tops that by 1,000.
Oh my.
You look at the difference between Omar Narvaez and what Francisco Alvarez does on a day in, day out basis. He may not throw out runners. I'll give that for sure. Francisco Alvarez has trouble throwing out runners, but the kid pitch frames immaculately. And, you check out the difference, one, in the way that the Mets have played with Francisco Alvarez in the lineup and behind the plate. I think it might be like 19-3. I don't remember off the top of my head, but something high like that. And you hear what all the starting pitchers and the bullpen are saying about what he does behind the plate. Jose Quintana is a totally different person with Francisco Alvarez behind the plate. So,
Oh, okay.
he has been such a better pitcher over the last couple of starts, and it's all due to me from having Francisco Alvarez be that, linchpin behind the plate, calling the game and framing pitches. Cause he'll, like you're talking about stealing pitches. He'll do that.
Okay.
He's stolen a lot of pitches. So Omar Narvaez just did not provide any of that. Some of the pitches that you're like, you know what, maybe if he would have moved a little bit quicker, maybe he would have gotten it. It just wasn't there. So, I hope, like you said, and for your sake, that they do not bring up Omar Narvaez, because you got better things going there. Duran Rivera, talking about vibes, he talked first about Seymour Wiener, who was the World War II veteran, bringing the vibes. Max Wiener is the rally pimp. That's him. Grimace,
Okay.
Jose Iglesias with OMG. And this show has got the vibes going on. We got 82 people in the room right now. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribing to Subway to Shea. Make sure you're subscribing to Bourbon and Baseball and Suzy as well on X, on YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcast as well. I want to go through a couple of more things here in the chat. I actually want to get to this thing that Brad was talking about, because I was talking about not wanting to trade Harrison Bader. And Brad says you have to sell high on him, even though he's killing it. My thing is, and it's with any player that comes over here, if the guy can ball and has that swagger in New York City, that's a guy I don't want to get rid of. We have signed so many players that just never belonged here. And you really have to belong in New York to play here. I mean,
Yeah.
the fans are hard here, whether you're on the Yankees or whether you're on the Mets. And Harrison Bader, he may not be, Juan Soto. He may not be, that big time hitter. But what he has done, even on the Yankees in the postseason, he was a lot of their offense. But he has provided clutch hits and some of the best defense I've seen in center field since we had Juan Lagares and Carlos Beltran. And that's how good. It's like he's flying, or someone said he was like gliding across the field. That's how fast he gets to the ball. But I am a keeper in a guy like Harrison Bader.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun when he was on the Cardinals, and then, he had to drastically change his looks because that's what the Yankees do. And it was hysterical because when he went over, like, the vibes had changed, and I don't listen, Yankees, again, you're not gonna take advice from, some schmuck nobody on a podcast, but what's with the facial hair? Let the guys have the facial hair, okay? Because the vibes would be so much better, because he's a different player. He's a different player on the Mets than he was on the Yankees, The vibes with the facial hair, it's a whole different.
Same rule applies to
different
Luis Severino too.
Yes. And then, Kyle Higashioka, the Yankees catcher that they traded to the Padres. I'm like, he's over there just hitting home runs again with the facial hair. So I'm just saying, maybe Yankees, you want to get rid of your no facial hair policy, because it's dumb. Let the guys cook however they want to cook.
Yeah. I that has been around for so long, that rule, and I'm surprised that they have just never decided to change it at all.
Right.
I'm really surprised that they have stuck with that rule through and through for as long as they have done. And look, obviously there are still players that want to play there, and they'll shave their face and they'll cut their hair and they'll have a
Yeah.
mustache, maybe like Carlos Rodon does. But there are just a lot of players that don't like that kind of strictness when it comes to the way they, present themselves. So, we'll see. We'll see how they get other players, and we'll see if they can re-sign Juan Soto in the offseason. I want to shout out here CP Mets and Knicks saying, did we spread the news? Yes. The Mets win. Yes. The Mets win. Very excited. I know CP was, and he had a great space last night on his live stream. Going back real quick to Brad here, because he brought up another good point for the Mets. And this will lead quickly to the next point. This team is on a roll now. If they can strengthen the bullpen and second base, and I don't know what they're going to do at second base right now, outside of bringing up Luis Angel Acuna, Ronald Acuna's brother, Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother. It looks like he's getting close because he's been hitting down there in AAA. But outside of that move, I don't really know if they move on from Jeff McNeil just yet. Considering the team has been playing well, everyone outside of him has been playing well, and they've been winning. I don't see them trying to get rid of him as fast. Like we would probably see more of Jose Iglesias play and do this little platoon split. Maybe we'll see a Luis Angel Acuna, but I don't think Jeff McNeil's going anywhere. I think they're going to allow him still a lot more time to try to figure out himself, because he's been struggling. But the bullpen, that's a thing that I like to see, and how this bullpen can succeed. I talked about it at the beginning of the show with how they handled the Yankees. Without Edwin Diaz for the next 8 days, they're going to have to rely upon guys like Adam Ottavino, who really hasn't shown much this season and who kind of has really failed in a lot of big spots. You got also, Drew Smith is now on the IL, and
is that a forearm strain?
He has a right elbow. He has a right elbow strain, so he is going to be out for the next 15 days. Sean Reed-Foley should be coming back soon. That's another name. They put Drew Smith on the IL and brought up Ty Adcock from the Seattle Mariners. So we'll see how he adds to this picture, because so far the pieces that Stearns has brought in, like I mentioned earlier, they have all been successful so far. So maybe this is another guy, and he's pitched well in Seattle. So maybe this is another guy that can help out. But the two keys for me, and I mentioned it earlier, was Daniel Nunez and Adrian Hauser. When you're getting 4-5 innings from your starting pitchers, you need guys in the bullpen that are going to give you length. You need that bridge gap guy that's going to come in, and you're getting that not only from one but two pitchers, which I think is going to be helping this team.
Was Adrian Hauser one of your starters?
He started off in the rotation, and I thought that he was going to be a nice fifth starter, and it just did not work for him. It did not work at all. He was definitely the worst starter that we had. He gave up, I think, 5-6 runs a game. And now that they switched him over to the bullpen, he's been a totally different pitcher. And if you look at his past, like before they put him into the bullpen, someone had posted on Twitter the stats of him as a starter and him in the bullpen. I think as a starter, it was maybe 4 or 5 ERA, but as a reliever, like a 1-something ERA. It's been working. So keep him there. Keep him there. Whatever's going to work to help not only himself get better, but to help this, bullpen out. And like I said, having more than one guy that can go multiple innings, that's what this team needs right now, especially without Edwin Diaz.
Absolutely. So is he, do you think it's just the fact that he thinks that he's got to like save some velo for later on in the innings, or does he only have a couple of pitches? Like what do you think is
He just was not throwing strikes. He was throwing a lot of balls. He was walking a lot of batters, and then he was giving up the big hits, and those innings just crushed him. Maybe he'd get 1 or 2 good innings in, and then he would fall like the second time around the order. It just was not happening for him. So they moved him to the bullpen, and the other night he got a 3-inning save against the Yankees. So that was nice to see him do that as well. And, with this Yankees, I don't know when the next time the Astros play the Yankees this season, But if it's soon, and if it's with this lineup that is currently constructed by the Yankees, every strategy should be you walk Juan Soto, you walk Aaron Judge, and see if the rest of these guys can hit him, because that team outside of those two players were awful. Awful. Double plays, strikeouts, bases loaded, couldn't get the runners in. I felt like I was watching the Mets for a couple innings.
Yeah. Well, we had the Yankees our first series, and that's kind of what we thought was going to happen. But then no, Gleyber Torres decided that he was going to become a monster. Oswaldo Cabrera was like, "Oh, hey, I can also do the things." Verdugo hurt us. Um, Anthony Volpe
Yeah.
did things, and I'm all, guys, what are we doing here? Can we not? No? Okay, cool. Just everybody in the lineup. Verdugo. I even think like Trent Grisham got hits against us, and it was just not it wasn't a great start to our season with the Yankees.
It was continuation of spring training, right? It was
Yeah.
just had to get it out of the system. Well,
Yeah. So
now they don't have Rizzo. Their hottest hitter coming into the series with the Mets was Giancarlo Stanton, and he's now out for the next month. So
yeah.
that was a huge blow to them. But, Aaron Judge is just a monster. And the fact that I'm still shocked at how the Mets just pitched at him the way that they did, especially when you can walk him. Obviously, Juan Soto knows how to get on base and knows how to walk. When it comes to Aaron Judge, sometimes you just got to put up those four fingers and put him on base and see if a Verdugo can hit you, or JD Davis, because all Met fans and Houston fans had a piece of JD Davis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and preseason, that was kind of the idea, looking at that Yankee roster on paper, you only circled those three names, right? Like Giancarlo Stanton, if he's hot, Judge, and Soto, and then the rest of the lineup you could kind of maneuver around, right? At least that was the theory. Yeah. And now it's coming to fruition. But I think what the Verdugo homer in Boston, I think, is the last time that he's hit. So, now it's just get Juan Soto on base, get Aaron Judge on base, and then anybody else is just going to hit into a double play. And I'm all, you couldn't have done this at the beginning of the season, Yankees. What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, the Yankees just got off to that hot start, and we see this from them every season, right? I mean, they go on a run, and every time you think that they are they're going to have one of those bad streaks, they play Kansas City or they play Minnesota, a team that they just handle every year. And it's like a 3 or 4 game set, and they either sweep or take most of the games in that series. But right now, they struggled against Boston. They struggle against the Mets. They struggle against Baltimore. They are on a bad path right now if they can't get this going. And, you listen to New York sports radio over here, and you would have thought it's the end of the world right now. And the team's in first place still, even though it's by 1 game. The team is in way better position. I'd rather be where the Yankees are right now and, have a couple setbacks where it kind of really doesn't matter than having to claw your way up constantly to try to either get back to 500 or try to get into some kind of playoff position. The Yankees are in a good position right now. They just have to figure out what they're going to do with that bottom of the order. And maybe it is making a trade soon, because these guys they have so many pieces that are just hurt right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they should thank their lucky stars that the Orioles are also struggling at the same time that they are also losing, because the Orioles could have really closed the gap, but then they ran into the mighty Astros, and then it's just, no, I'm just kidding. But, at no point in time did anybody ever expect the Astros to sweep the Orioles, especially this season. So, it's one of those things where, again, the baseball is baseballing, and it's going to just turn everything on its head. So, well, I don't know if the Yankees will make any moves, because they really don't want to give up prospects though, right?
Yeah, they did. They have the Jason Dominguez, who they're not going to trade. I can't remember the other guy that's a big time Spencer
Spencer Jones, I think.
Spencer Jones. He's the other one. They don't want to trade him either. But they, the Yankees always find a way to trade some of their
Like lesser prospects.
for big pieces. Somehow they
Yeah.
figure it out. And I wouldn't be shocked if they do. I think it's just still a little too early because there's still a lot of teams in the playoff hunt. So they might have to wait a little bit longer. Just to wrap up the bullpen conversation, because deGrom Rivera made this point, and this is not only a guy that the Mets should be looking at, but the Yankees as well. It said it would be sweet if the Mets can swing a deal for Tanner Scott. They could use a hard-throwing lefty in the bullpen because deGrom is too wild, which is true. This is the guy that I have been talking about, especially with the Marlins. You definitely know they're not in playoff contention, and they're they sold off Luis Ariz. I would be in on Tanner Scott. I'm pretty sure a lot of teams are going to be in on Tanner Scott, but I would love to have Tanner Scott on this team. If you're telling me making some minor moves to the bullpen, Tanner Scott, a lefty out of the pen that's closing, I will take him.
So now deGrom deGrom got the save a couple of nights ago, right?
deGrom got the save on Sunday night against the Cubs because of the Edwin Diaz situation, and Drew Smith couldn't finish the game. So they brought in deGrom. He got the final out for the save there. But he's a soft tosser. It's too wild. He nibbles the plate a lot, and it hasn't been helpful. It hurts that the Mets had to lose Brooks Raley for the season, who has been just such a good piece off the out of the bullpen. And then a couple of the guys in the minor leagues that were lefties that could have came up. Nate Lavender, who had a great spring, he's out with Tommy John surgery, so that's another guy. The Mets did bring up Danny Young, who did not have a good series. He got lit up, especially from Aaron Judge. So, we'll see how they handle the lefties out of the pen, but I would definitely be into a guy like Tanner Scott. G Money Stag says, if you and the Mets Evening Brew, which is the other show that I'm on the Morning Brew Sports Network, had to predict the number for wins, how many games will the Mets have to stay above 500? At this point, at the beginning of the season, I had this team at 87 wins. If everything was healthy and went right with Kodai Senga, JD Martinez, I am going to stick around 84 to 85 wins for this team, and we'll see how it goes from there. Anytime I do these predictions, I'm always wrong, and I'm always wrong by a lot. So, I tend to try
When are you guys getting Kodai Senga back?
The rumor is after the All-Star break, but I am acting as if he's not returning, because I'll tell you this, we have went through the same discussions through the media with Jacob deGrom. He's coming back. He's getting ready. He's got a setback, taking a couple months off. He'll be back. And then he just doesn't come back. So I'm trying to go into it as if we are not getting him back this season.
And what's his IL? Why is he on the IL again?
He had, I can't remember the two injuries that he had, but they were two different ones, because he had started to ramp up after spring training once we got into the season. And it definitely
was it like elbow, arm, shoulder?
So he had a capsule strain in late February. When he came back and was throwing bullpens, his mechanics were off, and he did not feel comfortable coming back and throwing it. So they shut him down again. And so here we are now trying to get him back. He had the shoulder strain and now the mechanic thing. And now he's finally, he's starting to throw bullpen sessions, starting to throw to batters. So at some point within the next, I think, week or two, we may see him throw in a minor league game, which is great. So maybe by the All-Star break, we might see him. I say take your time. I don't want this to get any worse. We know how fragile starting pitching is these days now, with the whole Tommy John surgeries and with all the injuries and the max velocity and all that stuff. Take your time. Do what you got to do to come back. And I think the Mets can hold it. I think the Mets without Kodai Senga is right now better than the Mets being without Edwin Diaz. I think that having Edwin Diaz back is what we need.
Because I know that you guys had moved Edwin out of the closer role for a little bit, and then he's come back. When was that? I have ADHD and time.
So in May, he had blown, I think, about 3 or 4 saves in a row. Could be 5.
Okay.
And they took him out of the closer role. He had started to come in the 8th inning, and then that's when he got injured. So they put them on the 15-day IL. He came back for the last game of the Marlins series,
Okay.
um, going into Texas, pitched a couple of games, got the save, and then as soon as he was getting ready for the Cubs series, he got caught and got suspended. So now 10 more days without him. The thing for the Mets is they have been playing so well,
Right.
during that stretch that he was not around, which I thought was very admirable from the team to figure out a way to get these saves and to get these and close out these games. The only difference with this thing is that with the suspension, the Mets are not allowed to bring up a pitcher, so they are now without a extra reliever, which could hurt them, which makes Daniel Nunez and Adrian Hauser so much more important when they pitch those, multiple innings.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, we know all about the sticky stuff, and we had Ronald go down, and I think in the 4th they called him. So we get it over here. We understand.
I just wish that there was a more uniform process, rule on, okay, he's got sticky stuff. It's either he's out or you're going to allow them to wash their hands and clean it off.
Right.
There's been too much, oh, all right, we'll let this guy wash his hands, but you're definitely out and you're definitely
Absolutely.
suspended. Like
Absolutely.
there's just,
Well, and how do you use too much of a
yeah,
substance that is allowed, that the league tells you that is allowed? Here's the rosin, but we're not going to tell you how much rosin you can use and how much is too much. You're just going to have to figure that out on your own. And if it's too much, you're going to get in trouble. So just be aware. Like, what?
yeah,
What are
and
we doing?
they're like, okay, if he did get caught, what was it that he was using that was so sticky? Because apparently, according to Edwin Diaz, he was using the rosin and some of the dirt and probably whatever sweat he had off his hand. I
What?
mean, you
Yep.
got to grip the ball at some point, right? Like
Yeah.
how much are they going to force this issue with all of these pitchers where, okay, your hand is way too sticky. You're just done. Your hand is okay. You know what? I'm going to allow you to go to the bathroom, wash your hands real quick and come back out and we'll see where we're at. Like, I just
Yeah.
don't understand.
Yeah. Well, and they say, with the whole sticky thing, the way that they know that the ball was doctored or whatever is because the spin rate is that much higher or whatever. He hadn't thrown a pitch. So what are we doing? What's your baseline? You have nothing to compare it to right now. So that, I mean, and I saw the picture. I get it, whatever. But it's one of those where, okay, you either everybody gets to wash your hands and then go out and you just keep checking, or like nobody washes their hands and everybody gets ejected all the time. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
I got some good comments here on the chat on this. Menace saying, where's the players union in all of this? Which I totally agree with. The players union is so pivotal in a lot of motions and rules that go on with their players that I'm surprised that they're not more involved in something like this, especially when you had Max Scherzer, who got caught with it last year, who was a player rep. So I'm just a little surprised that they're not more involved in this. G Money Stacks saying, I feel like the wording of the MLB rules is weird and there's just so much gray area that are flawed. And I 100% agree. That's the problem that I have with it. It's not the fact that he got suspended. It's the precedence that's being set because there's no uniform rule on the situation. It's just
Absolutely.
what it goes on feeling.
Yeah, I think it was Danny Coulomb, maybe, that he was on Foul Territory a couple of days ago, and he was saying that they know that there are certain crews that are a little bit more stringent than others. So the fact that it's at the umpire's discretion, and I'm all, can we stop with the umpire's discretion? It either is or it isn't. Like,
that is a terrible excuse for the umpires to have it at their. I mean, how many times have we seen Angel Hernandez's discretion being used throughout a game? Like, I think that's the problem that happens in baseball is when you leave it to the umpire's discretion, they become the stars of the game, and we don't want them. We're here to watch the players, not the umpires.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Jeff Cohen
So
saying maybe the team should check their pitchers before going into the game to get the okay, like the bullpen coach.
yeah, but then again, you have the whole what I said, like which team of umpires do we have? You know? Okay, so we know this group of umpires over here is gonna let it be a little bit okay, but then this group of umpires over here is not. And then it may just be that one umpire that night may be in a bad mood and just really, wants to show him who's boss. So it's the whole system is flawed. Let's just
Yeah.
let's just be really honest. The whole system is
No,
flawed.
it totally is. It's frustrating as heck to watch that play out. CPNY Sports saying the Astros series is a big test. They always kick our ass in recent years. I agree. That's why this, to me, it could be that sort of trap series. Once again, I'm here with Suzy from the host. She is the host of Bourbon and Baseball podcast, mostly about the Astros, but for all baseball lovers as well. So make sure you check that out and you're subscribing.
Well, we do have 2 different versions of the show. So I have one version that I do weekly with Kelsey, and that is the All the Balls episode, and that is where we talk about all of the teams and we go through like the big storylines of the week, things like that. And then the Astros edition is with Tom, and that we do a little bit more often, and that is we wrap that up at the end of every series. So there are 2 different versions. So if you don't want the Astros, don't listen to the Astros episodes. Just listen to the All the Balls episodes, and vice versa. But yeah, we like to talk ball. So even in the Astros episodes, we'll get into other teams and of what they're doing and things like that. Just not in as much detail as the All the Balls episodes.
Well, you
So
put
yeah.
out great content, and I'm just telling everyone right now, listen to all the balls, but also listen to the Astro stuff. I mean, it's very knowledgeable, Suzy, you are at this, and I'm excited that you've been a part of this show with me. And let's get right into the preview, because I got the tail of the tape for both teams here, and look at these 2 teams coming into this series. Mets 39-39, Astros 40-40. Mets finally are third in the NL East, finally taking over a slumping Washington Nationals. But you look at these stats. I mean, very comparable. The batting average 250 for the Mets, 263 for the Astros. Home runs, they're pretty close, only 3 apart. 97 for the Mets, 94 for the Astros. You got 8 RBI difference with the Mets 359 and the Astros 351. Stolen bases, only 1 off. The Astros lead that one 57 to the Mets 56. And OPS, Mets have 738 to 742 for the Astros. And look how close in pitching as well. 409 ERA for the Mets, 406 for the Astros. And you got the strikeout 691 to the Mets, 685 to the Astros, and 303 in walks for the Mets to the 290 for the Astros. This is a close series we got coming up here. This is big for both teams. Both teams are going to be playing their butts off here, and I am super excited for this one.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see how the series goes, especially since Friday night we've got Ronel Blanco, who is veritably my ace. He should be everyone's ace because he's amazing. And then we have Framber Valdez on Saturday night, and we don't know which version of Framber we're gonna get. So hopefully for the Astros, we get the good version, and Sunday is to be determined. We don't know if they're going to bring somebody up or what.
I have the what Fangraphs has projected, and for the most part they've been on. But here are the pitching probables, and you had mentioned it, right? Ronel Blanco going in game 1 for the Astros. He's 8-2, 2.34 ERA, going up against Jose Quintana, who's kind of had a little resurgence here, 3-5 with a 4.58 ERA. Then you got, as you mentioned, Framber Valdez, 6-5 with a 3.68 ERA, going up against Tyler McGill, 2-4 with a 4.81 ERA. And then Sunday, Luis Severino, who's 5-2 right now, 3.29 ERA. And what they had was Sean Dubin going up, who's 1-1 with a 5.64 ERA. I don't know how accurate that is, but for the most part, whenever I've seen the to be determined, I go to Fangraphs, and they have been pretty much on par with the starting pitchers. So that
Yeah,
might be it.
Sean Dubin is not really a starter, though. He hasn't really been stretched out, and he just pitched yesterday, and I think he went like 30-ish pitches. He is one of our relievers. He's not even really our long guy.
Dang you,
So
Fangraphs.
it may be a bullpen game, and when I say it may
Possible.
be, it will most likely be a bullpen game unless they pull up someone from our AAA system. But the last guy that we pulled up from our AAA system, that I say pull up from our AAA system, we didn't even pull him up from the AAA. He bypassed AAA altogether, was Jake Bloss, who got hurt in 4 innings against the Orioles. So we have a guy named AJ Bluebaugh in AAA that actually has been doing well. So that may be an option, but he's not on the 40-man. So we would definitely have to finagle
Yeah.
that. So it probably will be some sort of finagling bullpen game, depending on the usage of Fromber and Ronell and how the bullpen is used on those 2 days. That will probably be what determines if it's a bullpen game on Sunday.
Well,
'Cause
this
if
this series definitely favors the Astros. I'll say that for one bit. Outside of the Sunday game with Severino going, uh, you know what Ronel Blanco has done this season, like you mentioned earlier, outstanding. He has been, and he could throw a no hitter again. You never know, especially even if the Mets lineup is hot as it is. They've always had a couple of games where they haven't been able to score. Especially now that they've scored, what was it, 9 runs and then 11 runs, or
11, yeah.
12 runs. Like there's always, I always worry, especially when I go to Mets games. I always worry after the team the night before goes on a tear, and I'm like, you know what?
Right,
I'm
yeah.
not going to see any runs tonight.
Yeah.
So
How do
that's
you
something
how do
that's
y'all
possible.
do, how does the team lineup hit changeups?
Um, I think they've been pretty good this season. The Mets struggles on offense has always been against left-handed pitchers.
Oh, okay.
Left-handed
So
pitchers and pitchers they have not seen before,
okay, well,
like
so
like
then
rookie pitchers.
it is good. It is in the Astros' favor because I don't think y'all have seen Ronell, right?
Yeah, I know. No, and I
Sweet.
think
2 of
last
3,
time
here we come. No, just kidding.
I think last time too, Framber Valdez had a really good start against the Mets.
Yeah. Well, see, and that is the Fromber. When Fromber is going great, like that's the Fromber that we know, that we love, that we appreciate. But it just seems like if Fromber hits some tiny speed bump, he can't get readjusted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's my only worry with Fromber. Ronell, his put away pitch is a changeup, and it's filthy. And so that's why I asked, how well do y'all do? Um, that's basically how that like first no hitter was thrown, was because of his changeup. Like his changeup just befuddled everybody, and nobody could get even close to it. So those 2 pitchers, we may have a chance. We'll see. And Tucker is still out on the IL. He still hasn't done any sort of like baseball activity. So
Yeah.
we've been doing this hot streak. We've been hitting without one of the biggest hitters in our lineup on the IL. So, Bregman has stepped it up. Jordan has kind of locked back in, but then he seems just a hair late. But essentially, it's the way that Altuve and Bregman go, so go the Astros. I feel like Lindor is y'all's Bregman, because Lindor didn't get off to a great start, right? Like
Oh,
he's
no.
very, very cold, very
Yeah.
cold for a while. Yeah. Bregman doesn't really heat up until about June, like mid-June. So he's now the Bregman that we know, love, expect. We just expected that Bregman just a little bit earlier since it was a contract year for him. But I feel like for the Astros, how Altuve and Bregman go is how the Astros go. Like those are the straw that stirs the drink for us. And I feel like maybe Lindor is that guy for y'all.
He's definitely that guy, especially now that he's in the leadoff. Now that he's batting leadoff, I mean, he has been. I think he has 8 leadoff doubles that lead the league right now, and he's found the power. He's warmed up. I mean, he doesn't like to hit in cold weather, which is
Right.
that's always something that's weird to me because what's going to happen when like if the Mets make the postseason, he's going to turn into a pumpkin. Like I just I hope he's able to stay warm. I guess it is,
Right.
but for me, for the keys for the Mets is I want to see a quality pitching performance from both Jose Quintana and Tyler McGill. For Jose Quintana, it's because I kind of want to trade Jose Quintana. Like he's one of the pieces that I want to trade at the deadline. So I need him to continue to be good to, somewhat up his value. You're not going to
Right.
get
To
much
raise its
for him.
trade stock, right?
Yeah. A little bit, at least a little bit. And Tyler McGill, he's working his way out of the rotation if he does not pitch well. I mean, we have Christian Scott waiting in the wings. Jose Buto, who I've been begging for them to bring up. I don't know why he got sent down. He was pitching so well, pitching way better than Tyler McGill pitches. I think McGill is destined for the bullpen. And I would like to see those two guys, keep the Mets in this game because the Astros can go off on scoring, and those two pitchers give up a lot of runs when they have bad games. So that those two guys I'm concerned about, and I just hope that they're able to at least keep us in the game. And Luis Severino, he's been one of my favorite pitchers. I wanted him since the offseason. So glad that they signed him, and I just want to continue to see him evolve as he has been doing so far.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the lineup just realistically, I think the only pitcher that I personally am worried about is Sevy. The other two, I'm all, on a good day, the Astros can handle those two. However, it's one of those where if the Astros haven't seen a guy, it's like they are the top leading Cy Young contender. It's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I mean, Jonathan Cannon for the White Sox, their rookie that they brought up, 8 2/3 for, just I think allowed 2 hits against the Astros, and I'm all, what are we doing, people? Stop. And then the next start, the Detroit Tigers put 9 runs on him, or 8 runs? 8 runs on him in an inning. I'm all, see, Astros, this is what you should have done. This is what you should have done. But it's, it's one of those where if they have seen him, the Astros lineup is okay. But if they haven't, we're SOL.
What's funny is every time, whether it's during these lives or when I do like short series previews, I always go into the matchups and I see if there's, it has to be at least over 10 at bats. If I could get something 15, 20 at bats, it's a good, precursor to see how this matchup's going to go down. There's nothing between these two teams. It's like they've never faced each other. So we are going into this series blind at 39-39, 40-40. Like Jeff Cohen said in the chat, someone is going to be under 500 by the end of this series. I don't know which team it is. I know you're hoping it's the Mets. I'm hoping it's the Astros. But, this is a nice series to come into this weekend where both teams are on such a high. 8-2 in their last 10, and we have some solid baseball that we're going to see this weekend.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Like I said earlier, a blue and orange team will win this weekend. Don't know which one, but a blue and orange team will win. So fingers crossed that it's the Astros.
Lane Kerner says that the game is on Apple TV. So I don't know what the Houston channel usually is, but for the Mets SNY, don't look for that. Either watch it on Apple TV, or what I like to do is watch it on the radio because I don't have listen to it on the radio because I don't have Apple TV.
Well, so on the Apple broadcast, though, they used to have the option to where you can watch the Apple broadcast and then tune into your local radio broadcast.
Was it in sync?
It was like a hair off, but not super noticeable. But yeah, that's what I typically did, especially was it last season? There was one season when Katie Nolan was on there, and I just absolutely could not watch the Apple broadcast because I cannot stand Katie Nolan. And so I just muted it and was like, nope, absolutely not. Then I found out the radio thing and was very excited about it. So, but yeah, so it's here for the Astros. It's Space City Home Network is where you typically watch those. But yeah, since it's gonna be an Apple, we'll do
Suzy,
that.
I really can't thank you enough for coming on this show today. It's such a great conversation with you. You know ball. Let's just say that. You know
I
ball.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Aunt. I appreciate
L-
that, and
Let
thanks,
me know.
for having me because
Yeah, of
a
course.
lot of
And we're
fun.
definitely going to do this again. This is not the only time. I'm glad that we finally were. I know we tried linking up last year, and I think my schedule just was able to do it. But so glad we're able to do this now. We got to link up again once they play in Houston. They
For
are going to
sure.
play in Houston, right? Like
I think so. I think in August maybe. I
yeah.
say that. Let me double check that.
Well, I know the Mets are mostly gone for August because I have no tickets for those games in August. So definitely know they're away, but would like to do this again for sure with you at some point.
I say that maybe this is the only time we see you guys. Surely not.
Really?
I'm looking.
See,
Let's
now I'm
see.
going to have to look up the schedule.
Yeah, no. Unless I'm totally blind, I think this is the only time we play you guys this season.
Wow.
So then the next season you'll come to us, I guess
Absolutely.
is the
Absolutely.
deal.
Unless we both make it to the playoffs, then we're going to have to do something.
For sure. For sure. But yeah, no, I don't see you guys on the schedule again. I think this is the only time that we see you.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh my goodness. Unbelievable. But
That's
Suzy, let
crazy.
everyone know, what you got coming up, what you're working on. I know before you came on the show, you were doing a little bit of editing, trying to get your next podcast out.
Yeah.
Let everybody know what you're working on. Also give out your social media as well.
So we just put out, like I said, an episode a week for the All the Balls, which is where Kelsey and I talk about all of the baseball teams. Thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate that. So we typically try and record on Sundays for that. So that is released typically either Monday or Tuesday, depending on how fast I can edit. And then for the Astros side, Tom and I record after every series, that typically that night after that series ends, and we'll recap the series and then go into kind of a overview of the next series. And we just have a good time over there. My show is a little bit more rated R, so just be prepared. If there's little ones, you probably should put some earmuffs on them, or you put in your AirPods. Either way, I don't judge. But just be forewarned, there are some four-letter words, some very colorful language we like to do over there.
Sometimes you
So
need it.
absolutely, absolutely. So you can find the show Bourbon and Baseball wherever you get any of any of the podcasts. You can find it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, on Instagram. I want to say it's Bourbon and Baseball Pod, and then the "and" is actually spelled out. On Twitter, it's Bourbon in B-Ball, which is my name up here on the screen. Bourbon, the letter N, B-Ball. And then I think that's it. If you're old like me and have a Facebook, we're over there as well. And I just got back on TikTok to actually post some of the clips and stuff. Typically, I just like scroll on TikTok, and I have ADHD. So if I get onto TikTok to post, I just doom scroll. So I have to be very, very careful about my
And
TikTok
who knows if
usage.
TikTok's going to last long anyway.
Yeah, but you can find Bourbon and Baseball over there. Typically, it's just repurposed anywhere else that you can find it. So typically Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Those are the three main hubs that you can find me and the show, and we have a good time. So would love for you guys to check it out.
Suzy, you're amazing. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ann. I really appreciate you having me on the show. And even if we're not going to play the Mets, like if we can just get together and talk mess about the
Absolutely.
Yankees.
Absolutely.
That's
We also
totally
we gotta hit up our guy Keith from Shea and Sons podcast, do a little collaboration, if you know what I'm saying.
absolutely, absolutely.
All right, that wraps up the Subway to Shea podcast. You all know where to follow me. Like this video, subscribe to the Subway to Shea podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea, as well as at Aunt Rivera 86 for my personal X. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We have 100 people in this room. Thank you to every single one of you that tuned in. Hope you enjoy this Well, hope you enjoyed this podcast, but also hope you enjoy this series coming up against the Houston Astros. For myself and Suzy, thank you, everyone. And always remember, let's go Mets.
Let's go Astros.